What's going on, friends? One question that always comes up, and this is a really good one, is how many miles on my Harley-Davidson engine is too many miles to be considering upgrades? Do I just need to go ahead and do a full rebuild on the bike? Well, that is definitely something that you would want to do if you've got a lot of miles on the bike, but if you're really smart about it, you take a calculated measures going forward, you can upgrade a motorcycle that actually does have some miles on it, and you can do it safely, and you don't actually have to worry about it becoming a time bomb later down the road. Mileage on a Harley-Davidson is definitely a concern, especially if you want to get in there and you want to start doing some upgrades to it. You know, you might have a bike that's got 25, 30, maybe 40,000 miles on it, and you're like, okay, the bike runs good, but I do want a little bit more power. Can I go ahead and put a big bore kit on it? Maybe can I slide a set of cams in there? But I'm worried about the mileage that's already existing on the motorcycle. Is it safe to do so? Yes, it can be safe to do so if the motorcycle is a good candidate. But if the bike's got a lot of miles on it, you definitely want to be smart about it with what you put on there, but it can be done. There's nothing that says you can't put a set of cams on it or even a mild big bore kit, even if you got 30 or 40,000 miles on it, maybe even 50 or 60. It just depends on the motorcycle. But the thing is, the trick to this is that you've got to be very calculated with the parts that you pick and especially how you tune it. Guys, please don't forget, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now, one thing that I really like to consider when it comes to upgrading a motorcycle that's already got a lot of miles on it, let's take for a conversation I had here recently with a viewer about their Twin Cam 88. They had about 30,000 miles on the bike, roughly, and they wanted to know if they could bolt on a 100-inch kit. Yeah, absolutely. You could bolt on a 100-inch kit to that bike and not exactly have to worry about it if you know the condition of the engine as it sits now. Now, what I mean by that is if you've got a motorcycle that is clean running, doesn't make any unusual noises, you haven't had any issues out of it, this is a good candidate that's already got some miles on it that you could go ahead and put that 100-inch big bore kit on it. Now, what I wouldn't recommend doing is going with some extreme cams or some extreme head porting and really start pushing some power on that because it all comes down basically to the crankshaft. Now, in an ideal world, if you're wanting to do a big bore kit or put cams in a motorcycle that's got a lot of miles on it, say 50,000, 60,000 miles on it, in a perfect world, we would want to tear that engine down, do new crank bearings, put a new crank in it, make sure everything's true. We want to do it from the bottom up. But we don't live in a perfect world. So if you've already got a good, clean running motorcycle, there's really no reason why you couldn't put a mild big bore kit upgrade on it. And when I say big bore kit, a lot of times people think that we're going to go out and start pushing 120, 130 horsepower with a big bore kit upgrade. Not necessarily. If you think about it, let's take the Twin Cam for example. They ran through the 88s, the 96s, the 103s, and the 110s. They were, for the most part, basically the exact same engines. So if you're taking an 88 and you want to put a 95-inch kit on it, you're not essentially going to be pushing any more power than what you would have got out of a stock 96. You pair that with a mild set of cams in it, this could get you up in the 80, 90 horsepower range, which is really decent. And it's going to be a major upgrade from about the 60 horsepower that the Twin Cam 88 was pushing out before. Yes, crankshafts run out. That can be a bit of an issue, but if you think about it, that is essentially, for the most part, the same style and design of crank that was in the 96 and the 103. So you're really not putting any more stress on it than it would normally have if it were a stock 96 or 103. You're basically putting out about the same amount of power. Now, where that is beneficial to you is that you had your 60 horsepower 88, maybe putting out 70, 75, 80 foot-pounds of torque, roughly. You're essentially getting a brand new motorcycle. This is going to feel all brand new to you. Added power, added torque, everything that you ever wanted, and more than likely, you're going to be pretty happy with it, and you're going to save a lot of money over going out and buying a brand new motorcycle. Now, where I say the trick lies in having a good candidate is that I would not feel comfortable doing this to, say, a Twin Cam 88 that's using a lot of oil, that's got some funny noises in the bottom end. These are things that you're going to want to remedy before you go putting performance parts on it. That's not exactly a solution. That's going to contribute to the problem that you're already having. It may solve your oil burning, it may give you more power for a short amount of time, but at that point, if that bike's been rode hard and hung up wet, my concerns are going to be down in the bottom end. Now, where I say you want to be smart about finding a good candidate, if your bike's a good candidate for it, is that you're going to want to disassemble it and measure everything. Check your crank run out, look at your oil pump, look at your cam plate. It's not a bad idea to go ahead and change the cam bearings out, especially if you're going to go with a new set of cams, new set of lifters in there. Check your rods. Make sure everything's tight, you don't have any play in them, and if you let them go, make sure they fall. Well, don't let them fall and hit the case. But check them and make sure they're free. Make sure they don't stand straight up and down if you let them go. That's going to indicate you got a rod bearing issue, and it's probably not a good idea to go forward spending money on that, putting a big bore kit in it to upgrade it for a little more power, kind of freshen the top end up. Now, the same thing is true if you've got a 96. You want to make it a 103. That 96 stock is essentially basically the same engine as the 103. You're not really going to be stressing that crank anymore if you put a mild 103 kit in it. Kind of stick around the stock compression, mild cams, you're going to get a lot of added power, and you're not really going to be putting any added stress on the crankshaft. Because once again, it is basically the exact same motor as the stock 103 would be. And the 103 had quite a bit more power than the 96, if y'all will recall. Same thing is true when it comes with the 103. If you want to go to a 107, maybe a 110, keep it mild, keep the compression down, you're going to get more power, more torque out of it. Once again, instead of mild cams, you're going to be okay. Now, the other thing that is very beneficial to you is if your bike has a lot of miles on it and you're considering doing some of these upgrades, is if you know the history of this motorcycle. Even better, if you've owned the bike since new, you know how it was ridden, you know when the services were done on it. That is going to be a huge benefit to you because you know you can pretty much guarantee that the bottom end is in pretty good shape. Because at that amount of mileage, by that time, if there was a manufacturing defect or an issue, it would have already shown its head. Now, the scary part is if you buy a used motorcycle that's got 30 or 40,000 miles on it and you want to start doing upgrades to it and you know absolutely nothing about the previous owners, how it was ridden, how it was serviced, that can be a roll of the dice. That's where you really want to do your detective work when you're taking the bike apart. I wouldn't even say order parts. I would say tear it down and inspect everything first. Make sure your rods are good. Make sure your bearings look good. Make sure your cam plate. Make sure everything is in order before you order parts and start putting the money into it to try to upgrade it to get a little more power out of it. Because the last thing you want to do is not check anything and just kind of basically look at it and say, yeah, it's good, order parts, slap all this together, go out, and then in 10 or 15,000 miles, basically you shell a crank out or something. That is bad. You do not want a catastrophic failure after you've done put $2,000 or $3,000 into your engine to get it freshened up with some nice mild upgrades for some more power, trying to give it a new chance at life, and then you basically end up needing a full engine rebuild anyhow. So yes, if your bike does have some miles on it, no, you're not just kind of stuck with what you have. Now, if your bike does have a lot of miles on it and you're not comfortable with putting that kind of money into it, spending the extra, getting the big bore cylinders or a set of cams, one thing you can definitely do on these, especially if you're having a little bit of an oil burning issue, you can pull the cylinders off, you can actually hone them, maybe put some new rings, new pistons in it. Just make sure you measure everything out and check that against the specifications in the book. Make sure it's somewhat within the specifications. As long as you're within the specifications and you want to do something quick and cheap, like honing the cylinders, new pistons and rings, this can freshen up the top end and give you basically many more years and many more miles of life out of that engine. Is it ideal to do? Not really. But if you're cash strapped and you want to get your bike kind of freshened up on the top end, that is definitely an alternative solution. I don't like doing that because 9 times out of 10, as I mentioned, might get you a couple years, 10, 15, 20,000 miles, and then we're right back into the engine again. But if that's worth it to you, more power to you. I'm more than happy to do it in that situation. But the thing is that whoever you're having do your work, make sure that they present you with all the facts. Ask the questions. Present to them basically how the bike was ridden, how well it was taken care of, and go from there. Just keep it mild. Keep it very, very mild. That is my high recommendation there. 9 times out of 10, anybody that you talk to about engine upgrades or anything else, they're going to start with the crankshaft and go from the bottom up. They're not trying to hose you. They're just trying to help you be safe in the amount of money that you're going to spend and make sure that the work that they do, they can guarantee it and get you plenty of miles and plenty of years down the road without a comeback to the shop for a failure. So guys, just remember, new parts wear out old. Make a calculated risk, be very careful with it, do some detective work in that engine before you order parts. Check everything out to the best of your ability and go from there and make an educated decision on whether you want to go forward with a mild upgrade, a set of cams, or worst case scenario, hone the cylinders, new pistons, and throw in some new rings to stop some oil burning and get a little more life out of your current motor. But guys, I want your opinions. Let me know in the comments. What do you think? What number for you is too many miles to actually start doing some upgrades to the bike? Are you comfortable with putting a big bore kit on a stock crank that's got some miles on it? Are you even comfortable with doing pistons and rings in a bike and just honing the cylinders? Let me know down in the comments what you would do. But anyhow, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. You guys stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars, and I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.